news this evening is filled with speculation about what's behind the sudden departure of a top military and civilian team for the Far East.
Are you bored? Does this suck? Are you waiting for scintillating news on your favorite celebrity? Or perhaps wondering where those bells and whistles of the news you're used to are?
Then you're not alone. You are, in fact, a product of your generation. As members of the 21st century, we are used to news that stimulates, that excites, and the facts? Forget about those. Hi, I'm Laura, and I'm here with my trainee Martha today to talk to you all about satire and infotainment.
Yes, welcome. Forgive me, I'm a little new at this. Believe it or not, there was a time when news was not as entertaining as your everyday TV drama or comedy, and when comedians were not taken seriously as critics of the political system. Let's take a journey back in time to look at how the realms of politics and comedy have developed and intersected.
Oh, yes. In order to better understand what we're talking about here, let's use the genius of Jeffrey Boehm to help us out.
That sounds fantastic.
Okay, let's go. So, in the pre-television era of the 1950s, Boehm discusses the binaries that existed in American culture. For example, the clear divisions between news and entertainment, public affairs and popular culture, and argument and art.
Great, so what you're saying is that there were cultural forms that existed completely separately from one another?
Exactly! Boehm argues that there were two specific and separate spheres, the cognitive practical, which was completely separate from the aesthetic expressive, or in simpler terms, the serious, which was therefore informative, and the entertaining and therefore funny.
So, what does all this theory have to do with the fake news?
Oh, Martha, my sweet dumpling. Traditional news was serious and plain, and as you saw in that clip before, just downright boring.
Entertainment, on the other hand, was funny, loud, raucous, and flashy. Here's an example from I Love Lucy, one of the most popular sitcoms at the time.
Ricky, this is it.
This is it!
Let's go!
As you can see, people still valued the vaudeville styles of entertainment, which relied on physical humor and sight gags for laughs. Although satire started to come up in stand-up comedy, it was not popular or mainstream.
For example, comedians like Mort Saul started performing in comedy clubs, commenting on the political climate of their time. He would take the newspaper up on stage with him and use that as his material.
But why wasn't Mort Saul mainstream, do you ask? Because of the political zeitgeist of the time, silly. The stand-up comedian who challenged political authority from the shadows of the nightclub was overlooked and considered irrelevant. People could not place him in one of the two separate specific bubbles. He was not just entertaining or just informative. People did not want to have to think or be challenged before they could laugh.
So, all that was going on underground, but mainstream entertainment for the most part was still pretty polarized. But, as TV gained popularity, all those news shows had to start competing with sitcoms for viewers. This meant that those two previously separate spheres were now becoming less separate. That was exciting.
Oh, yeah.
This new type of performance that merged the two spheres was called infotainment.
This trend has escalated in recent years as well. Think of all the new technologies that have changed the way we view entertainment. 24-hour cable, the internet, we're spoiled.
That's right, but this new technology and access to entertainment forced the news channels to resort to entertainment-style production techniques and topics like gossip, things that would attract people's attention.
So the news you see today might look something like this.
In love, everyone, you will all die. Let's finish this.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. I was looking at it a little bit this afternoon. It's a new role-playing video game that is leaving nothing to the imagination. Mass Effect is what it's called. It's made for Microsoft's Xbox system, and it features in some parts of this, you'll see full digital nudity. Imagine.
Wait, so that's news?
Yes, Margarita, I know it's quite shocking. News today often feels the need to visually stimulate and entertain us in order to keep from losing viewers.
So, if news was becoming less reliable for actual political information and more about the flashy spectacle, then where were people going for their information?
People began to look in completely new places for political information, like television or especially stand-up comedy and sketch shows.
Examples of this include The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, The Colbert Report, and Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live. These TV anchors use satire to subtly critique and offer an alternative view of contemporary politics. For example,
U.S. businesses lose $200 to $250 billion to counterfeiting on an annual basis. And that is a shocking number, especially when you consider that the FBI admits it has no record of source data or methodology for generating the estimate and that it cannot be corroborated. That's what happens when the FBI buys bootleg reports off a card table in Chinatown.
Bain says that Colbert's humor is a challenge to the news media that have abdicated much of their democratic function in favor of theatrical spectacle. His show is an example of how satire is used to inform the contemporary political debate.
But wait! You've forgotten something! Pseudo-satire.
What is that, Laura? Please impart me with your knowledge.
Oh, but of course, Martha. While satire clearly criticizes a certain political or social issue and makes very obvious the comedian's point of view and their opinion, pseudo-satire is much more safe and offers no real opinion. Late-night comics like David Letterman and Jay Leno do this all the time. So shows like The Colbert Report and The Daily Show may seem to just be funny and entertaining, but they actually offer some of the best political critique around, especially since most news shows don't do it anymore. In fact, 61% of people under the age of 30 have said to have gotten at least some of their political news from late-night comedy shows.
And it all came about because of what Bain calls the contemporary collapse of the historical opposition between serious news and comedy.
Oh, Martha, I'm so proud of you. Look, now you've been entertained, and you learned something about the political climate. Boom!